You might wonder what these three things are up here. Box of grapes, the ministry book, which you will receive next week, and a pair of work gloves. Anybody want to venture a guess what the connection is between these three things? Anybody? No takers. Oh, good. And this is not planned. Yes, Pat, what's the connection? Ministry book, grapes, and work gloves. So she said, it's like serving, but usually so many times you don't really feel like it, but you kind of do it anyway. Well, this came to me as I read this gospel and I was shopping at Costco earlier this week. I think I saw Jesus in the produce department. If it wasn't Jesus, it was certainly the Holy Spirit, because at 3:14 a.m. this morning, I awoke and I said, I think I can preach on this thing. So Father Jerry, I sent him a little text. He said, great. He got a little day off today. But when I thought about that, the connection for me really circled around some of my favorite adages, right? As you've heard me say many times, I think adages are the distilled wisdom of the human experience. If you look it up in the dictionary, it says it's like something which helps you do things in a better way. And so here are three adages which just struck me. One, and this gospel reflects it, actions speak louder than words. Actions speak louder than words. So here we have the two sons, right? One says, oh, I'm going, doesn't go. The other, I'm not going, ends up going. So as Jesus asked the Pharisees, so which one is really doing the will of the Father? The one who said, I'm not going, but then ends up going. And I thought, so what made him change his mind? And we think about Jesus praying in the garden, and the relationship between God the Father and Jesus the Son is this deeply intimate bond. And I think in some way, shape, or form, for the Son who said no but went, and for us who say we'll go, but hold so many broken promises, there's something deep within us that wants to maintain that relationship, either for people we know who ask us to do something, but even more deeply, like Jesus and the Father, like this Son and his Father, there's a deep connection and desire to stay connected. And so when we disobey, when we are disobedience, and that obedience has this sharp kind of prickly things to it, right? You think of the word obedience, it's not a warm, fuzzy feeling because it's a demanding word. And when you look all through the scriptures, obedience is what they demand. And like the history of the Jews and our own history across the world, we don't always do what's right, nor do we always do what we should be doing. And why is that? Because it's hard work. I spent a summer on my uncle's farm up in Maine. He had a couple of cows and we grew hay. And I want to tell you, it was hot, grueling, sweaty work. Think of an occasion in your life when you had to do something you really didn't want to do. It may have not been hot, sweaty, and grueling, but it felt that way because you knew ultimately you had to do what was right. And so the relationship and maintaining relationship between the asker and the receiver and the giver and the doer is really what the deepest part of this gospel is about. The second thing is, we always say, at least I always say, and I'll tell you what I do because I'm a major procrastinator. So the adage is, don't put off until tomorrow what you can do today. Now, my version of that is, don't do today what you can put off till tomorrow. And I'm sure many of you would resonate with the same thing. We just always find excuses. I'm too busy. I don't really like that. I don't know how to do that. I don't like the person who's asking me. And you can add your own litany of excuses about why you would delay, linger, and wait in not doing something that someone has asked you to do, or even more deeply and profoundly, something you know you should do in terms of being faithful to the gospel call. So broken promises, delay, those are all reasons not to do anything. So the third adage which came to my mind as I reflected on this was, put your money where your mouth is. How many times have you heard that? How many times have you said that to someone else? Put your money where your mouth is. Not something we like to hear, but something which is so easy to offer advice. Put your money where your mouth is. Well, next week, you'll be getting a copy of the new ministry book, and there are plenty of opportunities here to put your money where your mouth is. All we have to do is, you walked into church today, everything that happens today didn't happen just by circumstance or serendipity. Patricia practiced the music. She had to think about what songs we would play. Joe was practicing. We have the cantor reading. Suzanne read. We have the ushers who greeted you. They'll take up the collection. We have lots of people who serve in ministry right here. Someone, our maintenance guy, Time, has to clean this church. So we have lots of opportunities, from the very mundane to the very sophisticated, to be responsive to the gospel call to service. And so as we go into the vineyard, that's really what Jesus is calling us to do. He's calling us to tend to the plants, to harvest these grapes. And these are really sweet grapes. You can join me after Mass. I'll share one or two of these with you. So there's a reward for putting in the time and effort, the sweat equity in a sense, in order to be responsive to the gospel call. We take away every excuse you could possibly have. I don't know how to do this. There's lector training, there's bereavement training, there's all kinds of training available to be a Eucharistic minister. So anyone here, and we have people who run multi-million-dollar businesses, if you came to me and said, gee, I don't think I could do that, and I say, how do you run a multi-million-dollar business? You can do that. You can certainly do this. So take away the excuse on your own of why you can't do it. If you're too busy, just think about the people who are not too busy. The ones who serve at the food pantry every day, Monday through Friday. We just had the food drive over at the temple. Someone had to come and take that food and sort it. It was a crummy, rainy day. Not the kind of day you really want to be out there getting wet and feeling cold and chilly. St. Joseph's will have their annual dinner this year, and they are honoring our soup kitchen people and all those parishes which serve meals every Saturday, a hot meal. They cook it, they serve it, they clean up. So think about all those people who do take the time to make a difference. So that leads us to these work gloves. These actually are my work gloves. You can see they're pretty dirty. So I can confidently stand up here and say, I practice what I preach here. And so when you start next week, you'll have an opportunity to take this booklet home, reflect on it. You might be doing some of these ministries as well. Maybe time for you to change course, find a new ministry. If you've never done any of these ministries, there's more than 50 of them, I think. So somewhere, someplace, your gift and talent can satisfy one of these needs here. In 2 weeks, then, we have the ministry fair, and you will be offered the opportunity, the invitation, the gospel call to serve. This isn't coming from Father Anthony. It's not coming from me. It's not coming from Father Joe. It's an invitation from Jesus Christ himself, because he calls us to hear the call and respond to the call. That's what the gospel is all about, being responsive in service to the needs of other people who are less fortunate than we are. And so, as Jesus says in so many places, the invitation's extended. He says, come and see. And then he says, taste and see the goodness of the Lord. As you go home today, give some thought over this week and the next. Which son do you represent?